To be honest, my predictions for 2026 are slightly pessimistic. And the reason is that most businesses, as far as I can see, only have two principal modes, one of which is cost reduction, and the other one is effectively regulatory paranoia. And only perhaps marketing and innovation and R&D are fundamentally at odds with that fanatical kind of preoccupation. In other words, don't fall foul of the regulator, don't have a reputational disaster, spend as little money as you can. And what I see happening in the short term is rather worrying, which is that the bill for AI is going to come due at some point because literally insane amounts of money have been spent. If you're an IT company hoping to recoup some of your money, how do you sell it to clients? Well, the easiest way to sell anything is cost reduction. In other words, it's what I used to call the doorman fallacy. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this, which is an old IT/consulting trick, which is you go to a hotel and you say, how much do you pay your doorman? And they give you a figure, which is probably in the sort of low six figures. And you then explain, you define the doorman's role as opening the door. You replace the doorman with an automatic door opening mechanism. You lay claim to all the cost savings that result, and you walk away not being held remotely responsible for any of the value destroyed. Because, of course, in reality, a doorman does far more than just open the door. They hail taxis, they recognize regular customers, they provide a measure of security, they provide a measure of status to the hotel. But the point is that there are large parts of the business world now, I would argue procurement would be one of them, large parts of the consulting world who are involved in these things called gain share agreements, where consultancies come in and are allowed to take a share of any identified cost savings. And yet none of these people are actually held responsible for any consequent value destruction. And an example of that would be, an example of the doorman fallacy would be the excessive promotion of self-checkout tills in supermarkets. Don't get me wrong, as an option, they're pretty good. I'm in a hurry, there's a bit of a queue, I'm only buying 5 things, I'll scan myself. What then happens is the finance people notice that it's cheaper to serve someone, or by getting them to do the work, than it is to provide a till operative. And so it goes from being an option to more or less an obligation. And those people are in this extraordinary asymmetric position, which seems to permeate the business world, where you can claim the credit for any reduction in cost, but you're never held accountable for any destruction of value, or indeed an opportunity cost. And, you know, you go back, the hotel doorman's been replaced by an automatic door operating mechanism, and 5 years later, you discover the rack rate's fallen off a cliff, there are vagrants asleep in the entrance of the hotel, their most regular, guests have actually deserted them, but none of the people who managed to justify their existence with the initial reduction in cost are ever held responsible for that. That falls to somebody else to clear up the mess, effectively. And in the case of supermarket self-checkout, one massive profusion of shoplifting. Okay, there were supermarkets who, a bit like Jesus, were selling more onions than they were actually buying,